Welcome back to the show. It's your girl Sarah right here on Relaks Radio, and we're going to be having a very important conversation here as well. All right. Now, I want you to stay tuned. I want to know your thoughts. I want to know what you're thinking, especially because, like I said, this is an important conversation, and we saw recently, this news actually made headlines recently when migrant rescuers actually had to face a lot of abuse because of they had to face a lot of abuse because of all of these problems that are there here in the United Kingdom in terms of migrants, in terms of the prejudice and the hostility that are there towards migrants. So, we saw a lot of the problems that they had to go through, right? So that's why we're going to be talking about it. We're going to make sure that you're aware and you understand the situation of these people, not just migrant rescuers, but in fact migrants as well. And that is why we're going to be having this discussion, all right? Now, before we head into this discussion, I want to very quickly remind you that you can in fact be a part of this show. All you need to do is just text me on 078 to get in touch with me, to share your thoughts with me, because I want to know what you're thinking. All right. Don't forget to call. Don't forget to text. I want to know what you feel about this. All right. So make sure you stay tuned. Make sure you stay tuned to the conversation. Make sure you share your thoughts. And don't forget to go follow us on our socials as well. Don't forget to like us on Facebook and follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok, because that way you can actually make sure that you're always informed, that you're always aware about everything that is happening, not just here in the UK, but in fact all over the entire world as well. All right. So don't forget to do that, because that's what we're going to be, we're going to be discussing, and we're going to be having a lot of important conversations that you might want to catch up on later on. So make sure to go follow us on our socials. All right. Now, something else that you can obviously do is in fact to go download an app which is available on both the Apple App Store and the Google Play Store. You can actually make sure that you are a part of this conversation live. You can join into the conversation live if you download an app which is available on both the Apple App Store and the Google Play Store. That way you can actually make sure that you're always listening to the conversation, that you're tuned into the conversation, and you're sharing your thoughts and opinions at that moment, right? Which means that you will be contributing to the conversation. So right now, let's talk about a very, very important question, a very important issue here in the UK as well. Now, a few days back, we saw how some migrant rescuers were in fact, verbally abused. There was a lot of strong language that was thrown around for them and telling them that they basically had a migrant taxi service. All right, I'm going to put it that way because that's what was said. Now, they call them a migrant taxi service, and we'll talk about why there is so much of hate, why there is so much of prejudice against people who help migrants and migrants here in the UK. Now, the Royal National Lifeboat Institution has actually hit out at accusations that it is operating a migrant taxi service. Right now, this is what I was telling you earlier as well, because they have been rescuing people who are at the risk of dying in the water as they cross the channel in small boats. They have been called a migrant taxi service. Right now, Mark Dowie, who's actually the chief executive of the Royal National Lifeboat Institution, said that it was the charity's moral and legal duty to rescue migrants in danger in the sea. All right, because let's actually think about their situation. Let's think about the instances that they're in and the circumstances they're in, because to be quite honest with you, we're talking about migrants, right? And I mean, if you're not someone who understands how this whole thing works, if you don't really know the whole distress and struggles that are faced by migrants, there are so many documentaries, there are so many movies that you can go check that will help you understand this, right? And the reason I'm saying this is because I want you to understand, and I want you to make sure that you're aware when it comes to migrants, when it comes to the abuse that is faced by migrants, that they go through a lot of abuse, right? And especially right now, because we're talking about migrant rescuers, we've understood and seen how they themselves are going through a lot of abuse as well, right? Now, Mark Davi actually said that because they have a moral and legal right to, or rather duty to rescue these migrants in danger at sea, right? And they also said that they're very, very proud of their humanitarian work, which is something that we need to commend as well. Because if you actually think about it, they've actually saved thousands and thousands of lives, right? And the reason this is so important, and the reason we should actually commend this, is because we know how much of refugees, we know how much of migrants that are currently there in the world because of all the wars that are happening. Okay, so in instances like that, it's important for you and I to actually come together and understand the reason as to why they're doing migrant work and why it's not justifiable to actually hurl abuse at them. It's not justifiable at all, right? Because what I'm telling you is, imagine, being out of the sight of land, you're running out of fuel, and you're coming across these incredibly busy shipping lanes when you're frightened and you don't even know what direction you're going in. Okay, and that is by anyone's standards distress. All right, if you want, I mean, I can spell it out loud and clear for you, but that is what distress is. All right, and by anyone's standards, you haven't seen land, you haven't drunk water, you're running out of fuel, you're in the middle of nowhere, and you have no idea about what's happening. Then that is in fact distress. So in cases like that, why is it that we don't really try to understand this? Because if you think about it, the role they play is incredibly important, because they're simply there to respond to a need to save lives, right? And if we're going to be so big on human rights and saving human lives and making sure people have rights, then we should also make sure that we have that exact same energy, we have that exact same mindset when it comes to refugees as well, when it comes to migrants as well. All right, now make sure you stay tuned, because like I said, we have a lot more left to talk about this, but right now we're actually going to head into a small break, and after that we will be back to keep talking about this more. Welcome back to the show. It's your girl Sarah right here on Relaks Radio. Now, make sure that you are tuned into the conversation and you're a part of this conversation, because, like I said, we're having a very interesting and important conversation about migrants, and especially in terms of the lives they have, the risks they go through, and the migrant rescuers as well. We're talking about whether it's justifiable for them to have all of that abuse hurled at them, right? And the reason we're talking about this, the reason we're having this conversation, is because in the past few days we saw the way that people responded, right? And I'm here, sitting, I'm scrolling on my Instagram, right? I'm scrolling on my news feeds and whatnot, and I'm sitting here thinking to myself, why is the world so cruel? right? Look, it really doesn't hurt for you to be nice. It really doesn't hurt for you to have a little bit of empathy towards people who are going through distress, right? And the reason that I'm telling you this, the reason I'm so I'm so upset about this is because we're a country that's so big on human rights, right? We talk about human rights, we talk about giving people opportunities. It's always, oh, we should give people opportunities, we should make sure that everyone has human rights, we need to protect people's human rights. But when it actually comes to protecting those rights, when it actually comes to making sure people still have those rights, we tend to turn a blind eye, especially in terms of migrants, especially in terms of refugees, right? And look, I understand, there are various concerns when it comes to migrants, right? We have national security concerns, and then in terms of, overpopulation, crowding, housing, unemployment, poverty, crime, there is a lot of factors that go into play in there as well. However, having said that, even if that was the case, it really doesn't hurt for you to exercise some basic human decency or some, empathy, right? So that's why we're having this conversation, because I want to make sure that all of you understand why exactly it's terrible to react in a way like this and make life not just hard for yourself, but for everyone else, and, treat them so terribly as well. All right, so that's what we're talking about this now. Before we head back into our conversation, I want to very quickly remind you that you can actually get in touch with me. All you need to do is just text me on 078-52473-473. You can text me, you can call me, you can get in touch with me on the show, and you can share your thoughts and your opinions with me, because I want to know what you're saying, right? I want to know what you're thinking, I want to know what your thoughts are. So call me, hit me up. All right, I'm expecting that call. All right, now before we actually head back into our conversation, I want to very quickly remind you that you can actually go follow us on our socials as well. Now, every time you're using your phone and you're scrolling down your phone, you know what to do, right? Go follow us on our socials. Like us on Facebook, go follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok, and subscribe to us on YouTube. That way you can always stay tuned to the conversation. Make sure you're always aware and you're always a part of this conversation. And don't forget to download our app either, which is available on both the Apple App Store and the Google Play Store. That way you can actually make sure you're listening in from either your iOS device or your Android device, and you can make sure that you're always contributing to the conversation. Now let's actually get back into our conversation, which is about these migrant rescuers, right? All these people who voluntarily work to rescue migrants, right? Now earlier sometime, or during this week, actually we saw how they had to go through a lot of abuse. Now what the RNLI, or the Royal National Lifeboat Institute, is trying to do is, what they're trying to do is they're trying to promote empathy, right? They want to promote empathy and understanding among the British public with respect to migrants who are crossing the channel following criticism on social media. Right. And basically what they had to say was that it's humanitarian work. Look, I think it's basic human instinct that when you see someone in trouble, you want to help them, right? I mean, I don't know about you, but at least for me, that's the case. When I see someone in trouble, I stop everything I'm doing, and I literally just stop everything I'm doing and I go to help them, right? Because that's just the way I've been brought up. That's just who I am. When I see someone in trouble, I want to help them. And that is basic human instinct. So the reason why there is so much of the reason why there is so much of negativity, prejudice, and discrimination, or marginalization, especially when it comes to migrants and migrant rescuers, is probably because of this prejudice, and also these narratives and negative attitudes that we have towards these migrants. Okay, now for example, like I said, when it comes to imagining what exactly is distress, let's actually analyze the situation of these migrants for a minute. Okay, so take a minute, and I want you to imagine all of this, right? Imagine you're on this boat and you're in this war-torn country, right? There's so much of wars happening, people are dying, it's you're being bombed, and you have no idea if you're going to live until the next day, right? And so you sort of get on a boat and you leave your country, right? So imagine you're out of sight of land, right? Because you're in the sea, you're making your way across the English Channel to get to some country where you can be safe, and there's no fuel. You're coming across these incredibly busy shipping lanes where you're frightened and you don't even know what direction you're going in. That's distress. And by anyone's standards, that's still distress, right? You have no idea what is happening right now. Anonymized testimonies that were there from all of these crew members or even migrant rescuers, something they had a lot to say is that a lot of these people are in fact lost in the ocean for 30 hours in -2 degrees Celsius. Okay, and those are just the temperatures in January, and there are families who are suffering from severe heat strokes and even seasickness on sweltering summer days, and people who are traveling in unseaworthy vessels, especially small boats where so many people are loaded into the boat until they get their way or make their way across the channel. So in instances like that, you understand why these people want to save those people, because at the end of the day, our RNLI crew members are in fact mostly volunteers, and they wake up in the middle of the night or they leave their regular jobs to come and help all of these people who are in distress in the sea. And once they actually return with the migrants, they ensure that these migrants are safe and well before they hand them over to the police and border control officers. Okay, so it's important for us to keep that in mind before we actually judge and come to quick conclusions and be very have an attitude that has a lot of prejudice and hostility towards these people. All right, now make sure you stay tuned, because right now we're actually going to head into a small break, and after that we will be back to discuss more of this. So until then, make sure you stay tuned.
The valuations that you place on an asset are always behind you. It's always in hindsight. It's never in front of you. And that's one of the challenges, right? Because you're always valuing what happened yesterday, and what you need is what's going to happen tomorrow. What am I saving or investing for? Why am I doing it? When will I need the money? And how much money do I need? Yeah. So that's quite important, because when you're looking at your net worth, you've got to start with saying, well, what do I want my